Gary, all yours.
Perfect, Michael. Thank you very much, and thank you for all your help as always, Michael. And good morning, everybody, and happy Wednesday. Thank you for joining us for our special AMC meeting this Wednesday morning with our favorite superintendent of all time here in Dade County, and we're looking forward to hearing from Alberto very shortly. What I'd like to do, first of all, is a couple of thank yous. Thank you to our meeting sponsor, Hotwire Communications, who we'll be hearing from in just a minute. I'd also like, as you see, one of the advantages about Zoom is everybody's picture is always right in front of us. So what I'd like to do is welcome and thank a few people with us today on the Zoom meeting. I'd like to thank our Miami-Dade School Board member, Dr. Martin Cart, our Aventura Mayor, Enid Weissman, our Aventura Vice Mayor, Howard Weinberg, and our Aventura Commissioners, Dr. Linda Marks, candidate for re-election, and our Aventura Commissioner, Denise Landman. Somewhere on here, maybe on my screen, page 2, is our former Aventura Vice Mayor, Billy Joel, and our former Florida State Senator, Ron Silver. And he must be on page 2 here on my screen. Also, as I always say, my predecessor and longtime chairman of the Aventura Marketing Council Board of Directors, our former chairman, Cliff Schulman from Weiss, Sirota, and Healthman. Also from our neighbors here in Sunny Isles Beach, our Vice Mayor, Larissa Savechin. And as always, as I said earlier, our leader and our Zoom guru here, if you will, our administrator, Michael Stern, who is also former Vice Mayor of Aventura. So to keep the program moving, and I'm watching, as we spoke earlier before Michael let everybody in, our participant count rise. But to keep the program moving, I'd like to turn it over now to our Aventura Mayor, Enid Weissman. Enid?
Thanks, Gary. Thanks. And good morning to everybody. This is always a special day. The superintendent of Miami-Dade County Public Schools probably garners the largest audience that our chamber has. And I'm not going to waste the time telling you about Alberto's accomplishments. I think he is definitely the most recognized face in all of Dade County. I'm going to tell you that he is the hardest working person in all of Dade County. That 6 months ago, our country went into a tailspin. There's no one I would rather have at the helm of Dade County Public Schools than Alberto Carvalho. For 12 years, including Saturdays, including Sundays, including Christmas, including Thanksgiving, he has taken care of our community, not only in terms of education, but in terms of social and emotional needs. The challenging times aren't over, and we're going to be flexible. But I would just like to ask every one of you, who could we have had better for 12 years? It's not about what are you doing for me today. It's that we know you're going to get it right. We know you're going to get it better than everyone. And we have such high expectations and love and admiration for you. So with that, it's my pleasure to have said those few words, and they're very few words in terms of what this man has given to our entire community. I love you, Alberto.
Thank you, Enid. Thank you very much for those kind words of the superintendent. Our meeting sponsor today, as I mentioned before, is Hotwire Communications, who's been a great friend and a partner of ours in many, many programs during the last couple of years. On behalf of everyone today, not only on the Zoom, but behind the scenes, we want to extend a sincere thank you to Hotwire Communications. And I'd like to turn it over now to David Ramos for a quick reading. David?
Good morning, and thank you, Gary, for the opportunity to allow us to be a part of the event. At Hotwire, we strive to ensure that our clients have the best in products and services, along with unparalleled white glove support, specializing in providing the world's fastest internet, digital video, and a suite of automation products. Our team of dedicated professionals has proven that no technology challenge is too difficult to accomplish. Most recently, one of the greatest initiatives that we've taken on to date is solving for the digital divide that exists in our communities. Thousands of students and families in Dade and Broward counties go without much needed internet connectivity or computers to use for schoolwork or work for their parents. Our Empowering Communities Foundation is committed to doing our small part to provide that connectivity to those who need it most. Now, speaking about commitment to our community, we all know what a very special superintendent we have here in our county, and we're so fortunate to have him. As our community faces a pandemic, civil unrest, financial hardship, plus a robust hurricane season, our appreciation runs deep for this gentleman. Most of you know that under superintendent's leadership, Miami-Dade County Schools has become one of the nation's highest performing urban school systems, winning national accreditations, awards, and recognition. You can tell he's an instructional leader at heart, as he founded the award-winning iPrep Academy that's become a role model of learning in the age of innovation and technology. The awards and honorary degrees go on, including Florida Superintendent and National Superintendent of the Year. His commitment and the love of this community and the students, teachers, and administrators were key factors in his exemplary leadership of the fourth largest school system in the nation since 2008. His heart is always in the right place. When the pandemic hit, our superintendent went out for over 100 straight days, weekends included, to bring food to children in need throughout the county. He continues to deliver food as often as he can, frequently accompanied by an AMC board member, Anthony D'Amato, who also brings masks for the children. As Muhammad Ali said, true giving happens when we give from our heart, and perhaps that best describes our guest today. As a product of the Miami-Dade public school system, it's my pleasure to introduce our very own Superintendent, Alberto Carvalho.
Thank you so much, David, and Gary, Enid, and the entire board, my dear friend, my beloved friend, Elaine Adler, and everyone in the audience here today at Aventura Marketing Council's meeting. I greet all of you with a degree of humility, a bit of fatigue, but a growing excitement about our reopening of schools sometime later on this month. Look, what I'd like to do is, in a very transparent way, is transport you back to a later part of March and through the summer now to where we are and expectations for things to come. Needless to say, Miami-Dade County Public Schools positioned itself well. In advance of this pandemic actually hitting our shores. We predicted early on back in January that it was not a matter of if, but when would this virus begin to have its impact in our community. We decided to project, prepare for, and develop leadership solutions for a worst case scenario. And a worst case scenario would be one where the community would shut down, therefore our schools would shut down. How would we provide continuity of teaching and learning for our students in an equitable way? And we began drafting our pandemic plan and our instructional continuity plan back in January, accelerating through February. By March, we had trained teachers and we were able to launch 2 different versions of a continuity plan with accountability, with attendance, with pacing guides for teachers, because we were prepared on a number of different areas. Number one, you, the community, had approved back in 2012 a massive bond referendum of $1.2 billion to modernize our schools and to bring 21st century technology to our students and teachers. That enabled us to fortify and to provide ubiquitous universal Wi-Fi connectivity to our students, buy massive amounts of individual portable devices for our students, and hotspots to eliminate what David referred to earlier as the digital divide that often plagues communities that can be discerned simply on the basis of a zip code of birth. So when we shut down our schools, March 13th, in advance of the state's order of shutdown, because of conditions here locally, we had done so after surveying parents, determining what the technological needs were in their homes as far as devices plus connectivity, and we distributed in excess of 120,000 devices into the hands of students, in addition to about 11,000 hotspots for students who did not have connectivity at home. We were able to continue to teach despite the adversity of conditions that positioned themselves against our community. It is not easy, mistakes were made, but we were able to maintain on average a 91% attendance rate online with close to 100% connectivity. During that time period, recognizing that 73.4% of our children live at or below the poverty level, we were able to maintain 50 schools open for food distribution on the go. And during that time period until now, we have distributed close to 8 million meals. We have shifted the times, initially in the morning, now in the evenings, to make it easier for the parents to pick up multiple packets of meals, breakfast and lunch for multiple days. We were able to negotiate with the federal government waivers to make it easier for parents to pick up meals regardless of where their children attend school, with reduced accountability and verification. But that wasn't enough. We knew that there were some parents who, despite the fact that we maintained schools open, had no access, no transportation, or were working. And we decided through our foundation to actually go to the community and ask the community for financial support to accomplish two goals. Number one, bring hot cooked meals to the poorest families and children in our community by overlaying over the county's map the highest pockets of poverty. That's one goal. But simultaneously, put back to work one of the most deeply impacted industries in our community, restaurants and hotels. And we were able to raise by now $1.3 million. And we have been supporting in excess of 40 restaurants across all of Miami-Dade, from Miami Beach to Miami Gardens, Homestead to Doral, Liberty City, Overtown, every part of the community. And through that effort, we have distributed in excess of 140,000 hot cooked meals by restaurants. So we were supporting small, medium-sized businesses while simultaneously feeding children and their parents. We have not rested. I mean, throughout the summer in a very condensed time period, recognizing that probably the beginning of the school year would come to us and conditions probably would not be appropriate for us to reopen our buildings because the county, up until this Monday, we're still in phase one. We developed what we thought was the best approach to distance learning. We knew that because one of the biggest complaints from parents and teachers during the spring of 2020 was the fact that our first approach to continuity of learning online forced parents and teachers and students to, quite frankly, pivot from a multitude of platforms, a multitude of applications for access to the content. So we made a bold decision that had never been done before. Once the state provided an approval for its requirements, we decided to actually contract with a private sector entity that has had a long history with Miami-Dade, a number of years where they have provided Miami-Dade online and homeschooling products for students, vetted the product, and we decided to go with that because it was one reputable entity approved by the state that integrated all of the content, the curriculum in one single platform, making it easier to do sort of a one-stop shop for all educational needs. And look, I am somebody who tells the truth. We had grand promises, a beautiful vision, and a plan that unfortunately, for a number of reasons, some of them connectivity, some of them cybernetic interferences, but most of them dealing with a performance of this third-party private sector entity approach that did not pan out as we had anticipated, with a clear deviation from the promises and a failure to deliver on what had been agreed to. I began to have, quite frankly, some questions and concerns as the day was approaching, and I kept hearing sort of the moving of the goalpost. But we still reached, 3 days prior to the beginning of the school year, a point where the CEO of the company provided assurances, their lead engineers, assurances that their capacity, their ability to load content, to provide an excellent educational experience were all a go. So we launched into August 31st, the very first day of school, with high hopes that were not met. And this was for me one of the most difficult professional days of my professional career, but also professionally very disappointing. we began to make quick plans to address the issues that needed to be addressing, but it was clear to us after days of 12, 13, 14-hour conversations with K-12 that it was not a go. I never fully executed that contract because of my concerns, and I made demands of that private company that not only would we not be paying them, we expected some degree of financial recognition for the imposition and, quite frankly, inconvenience imposed on our teachers. And as you probably know, you've read, we have now pivoted again to a trusted platform that teachers, students, parents are trained in and accustomed to. It's Microsoft Teams and Zoom protected through our portal that does not allow for interference or the bombing of those assets. Just this morning, I was visiting schools and watching and witnessing teachers teaching from school, students while they're at home. So that's where we are. We've reached a new level of stability and normalization. Kids are learning, teachers are teaching. But we recognize that the best place for children to learn, should conditions allow it, is the schoolhouse. Enid, as a lifelong educator, knows it. Denise Landman, who works for the school system, also knows it. All of you, Howard, you know it. Anyone who's a parent knows that pedagogically speaking, educationally speaking, cognitively speaking, the physical interaction and nurturing educational environment is irreplaceable by anything else, no matter how good the remote learning experience may be. In addition to that, the social and emotional domains of children are better addressed and enhanced in the physical environment with a nurturing teacher. The mental well-being and development are best taken care of in a physical environment. The big question or questions are the conditions there? Or will the conditions be there for a safe return to school? And I can tell you that we are proud of the fact that we assembled a remarkable group of public health experts and medical experts a number of months back. This is an ad hoc advisory group to me as superintendent. A number of those individuals also advised the county mayor on his decisions regarding the reopening of the local economy. And I have to tell you that this remarkable group, which includes a former Surgeon General of the United States of America, Dr. Vivek Murthy, includes Dr. Judy Schechter, the head of pediatric medicine for the University of Miami, includes Dr. Judy Marty, top epidemiologist for FIU's medical school, and others. They identified 8 specific gating criteria. These are specific elements that have metrics attached to them that we have consistently and ferociously observed and collected over time. And while conditions in Miami-Dade, if you were to go back 4, 5, 6 weeks, were inappropriate for a reopening of schools, even a modest reopening of schools, a staged or scalable reopening of schools, those conditions have changed considerably. So let me tell you what those are, because I think they are important to recognize and understand. Number one, the positivity rate. The percent of individuals tested that turn out to be positive. Positivity rate at its highest reached 28% in Miami-Dade. It is now below 5% over the past 3 days. And it is on a downward trend, which is very, very encouraging for us. The gating criteria for Miami-Dade were 14 consecutive days of a positivity rate less than 10%, heading towards 5%, and an ultimate goal at 3%. We are there, and we will be there even closer to 3% as we approach the end of the month. Secondly, lower levels of mortality and morbidity, also for 14 consecutive days. Lower use, a declining use of ICU capacity in our local hospitals. That trend also is coming out very positive. A decrease in the viral strength of coronavirus in our community. That's the total number of cases, not just the percent tested with a positive result, but the total viral strength, total number of cases, a reduction. Also, more expedited and available testing, but also faster test results, approaching a 48-hour return on test results. Every one of the 8 metrics that this group recommended are being met, putting us in a position now that the governor and the mayor, actually the governor declared Miami-Dade County's transition from phase 1 to phase 2, and the mayor liberalizing a little bit more some of the business functions in our community, puts us in a position of actually having lifted one of the big roadblocks to our reopening. 50% of our reopening plan hinged on a stage 2 or phase 2 declaration. We're there. And now we're in a position of reconvening our medical experts, which we are doing. Actually, we're meeting with them tomorrow afternoon, and we will be presenting to them the additional facets of our reopening plan, meaning considerations in schools like social distancing, sanitization cycles, electrostatic disinfection of facilities, mandatory wearing of masks, social distancing in school buses and disinfection prior to entering school buses, distribution of infrared thermometers for free to every single family in Miami-Dade, new protocols for the feeding of children while in school, and the precautions that we need to take to guarantee maximum safety in clean and healthy environments. They will make a recommendation that hopefully will be one that meets with the expectation of many parents, since about 50% of the parents in our community have expressed a strong desire to return students to school once conditions materialize under a phase 2. The other 50% or so deciding at that time to keep kids enrolled and engaged in distance learning. We are a choice district, and I believe that it ought to be a parental choice that decides whether or not to return kids to school. We recognize the hardship on many parents specific to their own personal circumstances regarding supervision of children, regarding their own work pressures, and we recognize that if the conditions are met, local health conditions driven by scientific, not political information, if those are met, and in fact we remain in phase 2, then we should consider the reopening of schools for those parents who are ready to return kids to school. We have surveyed our teachers. We continue to obtain information from our teachers. We recognize that our workforce does have some representation of individuals who have underlying health conditions that must be considered. Through our ADA process and extended FMLA, we are extending those individuals the opportunity to apply for and have appropriate accommodations. And we hope that we are forming matches of students who will remain online, that will be taught by teachers who may be prevented from returning to the schoolhouse. We are ready. We decided wisely to keep the devices in the hands of students throughout the summer to begin to address what I believe will be a historic academic regression, meaning learning loss, as a result of this compound effect of the summer learning loss on top of a disrupted fourth quarter. And that is why we are intensifying our efforts, particularly with the most fragile of children amongst us. Those are the ones we hope to bring in first. We hope to, in the final stages of planning for then the youngest kids to return, but it is my goal based on current information, as I have told the board weeks ago. If the conditions materialize, to bring kids back to school, or at least to make an announcement to do so no later than September 30th. We will be having a meeting with our school board after we convene our medical experts tomorrow. The meeting with the school board will be sometime early next week, maybe as early as Monday, for me to recommend to the board a start date for the schoolhouse model. Based on conditions today, I am absolutely convinced that a restart date may come as early as the end of September, the last week of September. That's a little bit moved up from October 5th, when I last predicted a return to the schoolhouse. We don't compromise on the topic of the health, well-being, and welfare of our students and our teachers, and consequently their families. But we ought to be nimble and flexible in offering all available options within the protective layer and the protective environment that the schoolhouse provides. One last thing. I know that the start of this school year's learning experience on the 31st was not the smoothest one, was not the one that I expected. We trusted one entity maybe a bit too much. I am one who leads from the front, and I've assumed responsibility for that. My responsibility, not the school board's responsibility, not the hardworking teachers or parents who struggle with connectivity, my responsibility. As has been my responsibility over the past 12 years, to usher in, through the vision of our board, the hard work of our leadership team, the support of parents, teachers, principals, usher in a renaissance of performance in this school system. With over 1,000 choice programs, for 9 years in a row, Magnet Schools of America District of the Year were more successful programs than anyone else, more schools in the Florida area than any other district, in the top schools of America, according to US News and World Report, and more schools in the top 100 than any other district in the state of Florida. 4 years in a row with 0 F-rated schools. I mean, many of you probably would never believe that, considering the demographic profile, diversity, poverty, percentage of English language limitation, percentage of students with disabilities at this district, would ever eliminate failure. Then we did it again and again, 4 years in a row. This four-peat is really historic in nature. 3 years in a row, an A designation for the entire school system of Miami-Dade. And this is not to knock anyone, but there are wealthier districts in this state, just north of us, that have not been able to land their first A designation. Just this week, we announced the advanced placement results, once again, #1 in the country, with meteoric increase, not only in performance, but also in enrollment, which is really a dangerous proposition. When you enroll more and more students in advanced placement, one of the most rigorous programs, and I could say the same thing about IB and Cambridge, you run the risk when those kids sit for the exam to see a decline in performance, because we do not cheat. Every single kid who takes an AP class actually sits for the College Board exam. And the impossible became the inevitable again. A 25% increase in performance, AP performance, with scores of 3, 4, and 5 on a College Board exam for Hispanic students, and a 28% increase in performance for African American kids, with increased number of participation. So my friends, if I were to say that I'm not proud of where this district is today, if I were to say that I'm not proud of where we are as a school system, I would be lying to you. But I would also be lying to you if I were not to say that this year's beginning was not what we expected. And I rely on trusted voices and friends like Dr. Martin Karp, not only a man of vision, of support, student-centric support of this administration, of this school system, someone who I have to say is leaving the school board, and I think we're losing one of the very best educators, but also one of the very best minds and hearts that this school board has. And to you, Marty, as this probably is the last time that we connect through the Aventure Marketing Council, thank you for your counsel over the years, your friendship, and your support. To all of you, as I close, I often say, never in my wildest dreams would I think that a kid out of poverty, an immigrant kid, a kid who was once homeless and slept under the bridges of Miami, could today lead the highest performing urban school system in America. Dreams do come true, but they happen as a result of the planning, the vision, the hard work of dreamers who do not allow the dream to simply be an ethereal idea that floats in space, but actually wrap leadership, strength, blood, tears, and toil towards a greater good. And that's what happens in schools across our community. So let me thank all of you for your leadership, for your grace in welcoming me back to your full time and time again. Unfortunately, this time there are no pictures with kids. There is no great bagel breakfast, but the camaraderie, friendship, and support are still there. And let me just take a couple of questions that have been put on the chat and just address them directly. And one of the questions I think is important to everyone, centers around whether or not there's a phase when the schools will be will only be in person, no longer distance learning. So that's a very, very good question. We are a choice district, and we always, even before the pandemic, had Miami-Dade Online. So remote learning existed before the pandemic and will continue. But as we go into stage 2, I expect, based on parental surveys, 50% of the kids to return, 50% of the kids to remain connected online. When we meet the criteria for stage 3, I think that will change again. By that time, all students will be welcomed into the buildings, but the Miami-Dade Online option will remain open. There's another question, I think, that is in the minds of people. Are teachers currently still teaching from home or in the assigned schools? At this point still, before we fully reopen schools, which will be, I believe, based on the advice of our medical experts later on this month, teachers still have an option to teach from school remotely or teach from home. But I can tell you that we have thousands of teachers who have opted to teach from their classrooms because they have a great technology available to them. They have surround sound. They can see the kids on a Promethean board. So they've opted to do that. Others opted to teach from the safety of their homes, and that's still acceptable. Once we pivot to this stage 2 reopening, then the expectation is that teachers return. Obviously, teachers other than those for whom we will make accommodations based on underlying conditions and ADA approved conditions. Another question that's of interest is, how will our high school students who may not have had the opportunity to take college tests compete with states who never closed their schools? I can tell you we've been working with the SAT and ACT to provide additional opportunities. We'll be publishing those retest dates, but we will leverage every single opportunity by working with the College Board to extend those additional opportunities for our students. Other questions center on programs such as dual language and gifted. Will they continue to be offered online when schoolhouse opens? Absolutely. So the principle of equity shall be respected, and we will continue to deliver the guarantee of varying levels of difficulty and an advanced nature in programming, regardless of the modality of teaching and learning. So gifted programs, advanced placement programs, IB programs, if it was the choice of the child or the parent to remain online, will continue to be extended, as is the case for dual language programs. One important question, what is the fiscal impact on the budget as a result of this pandemic? Look, at this point, the state of Florida has provided sort of safe harbor despite the potential decline in FTE. And we know that in the South Florida community, Palm Beach, Broward, and Miami-Dade, we are operating at a lower full-time equivalent, lower number of students than previously anticipated. But despite that, for this fiscal year, unless a special session is convened in Tallahassee, our funding is protected. With that said, I think you've heard the recent news. The state, since the beginning of the pandemic, has experienced a $2.7 billion deficit as a result of much lower tax collections, mainly driven by sales tax collections. I mean, when you have a $45 billion cruise industry at a standstill headquartered here in Miami, you know what that's doing to our state's coffers. But I can tell you that we had a budget approved this year with the fourth lowest millage since the Carter administration, a lower millage than last year, but still leveraging the full potential, with a higher fund balance and a higher reserve to prepare for the possibility of a state adjustment. One thing that we continue to do is we are working with our state representatives and federal entities to ensure that what was done back in 2008, 2009 during the great recession of our time, which may be, quite frankly, outdone by things to come, we are stimulating the wishes and the whim of our federal representatives to consider a supplemental stimulus package, but this time around to benefit directly local governments, cities, municipalities, as well as school districts. The first time around, it didn't. Just as a mean of comparison, during the recession of 2008, 2009, about $113 billion had been earmarked to support K-12 education across the country. Comparatively speaking, at this point, only about 15 billion have been earmarked to support K-12 education nationally. So compare $113 billion to $15 billion of support to K-12. So more must be done. I hope that the House and the Senate do come together and recognize that now is the time to support not only public education, but the needs also of local governmental entities. I will close by saying, I'm going through the chat, making sure that I responded to all the questions, and I think I have. And thank you, Larice, for the kind words. I want to thank you once again as I close. I always close every one of my speaking opportunities by declaring my mantra, my personal philosophy, that anyone's impossible can become everyone's inevitable through sheer determination, sheer belief, sheer skill, and skill will. And those are hard words for some these days, because sometimes the skill, medical knowledge, and scientific awareness is diminished for the sake of political benefit. We do not waver. We follow science in our determinations. We follow common sense, and above all, we follow the humanity that must be observable, ubiquitous, universal, and palpable in our schools, whether teaching and learning is delivered remotely or in the protective environment of our schoolhouses. Much like you, my last words, I cannot wait to hear the giggling voices of students, the droopy eyes of high school kids when they meet eyes with their girlfriends once again in the hallways. I cannot wait to hear the complaint of cafeteria food once again, and see the joy of a kindergartner for the first time entering our schoolhouse. We are the best urban school system in America, and that does not happen by magic. It happens because of great leaders, great teachers, great school board, great vision, and great community support. You are the good people of this community, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for the blessings that you bring to us as a school system and to me personally. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. Thank you, first of all, for your time today. You've always been a dear friend of the Aventura Marketing Council. I know every time that Elaine calls you, you feel obligated to say yes, but we do appreciate that, because we do know that you are extremely busy through these, let's call them, uncharted times. I can only imagine the long days, the sleepless nights, and the countless meetings that you have had on Zoom. As you have said earlier, you have become quite proficient at this. I can only imagine how many of these you have had over these last couple of months. But more than anything, everybody that's on here today truly does I believe I can't speak for them, but I will on one hand respect you and thank you for all of your dedication and all of your hard work that you continuously do for our school system, Dade County, which, as you said, and we should be extremely thankful for, is the #1 school district and program within the United States, not just Florida. So for that, on behalf of everyone here and behalf of us at the Marketing Council and Chamber of Commerce, we extend a sincere thank you for everything that you do. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much to all of you and my dear friend, my beloved friend, Enid Wiseman. Enid was once like a mother to me. Then she became like a sister to me. And then and now, one of the closest friends I have, an inspiration to me. And to Marty Karp, if he's in attendance, I'm not sure if he is. Thank you for the great father you are, the great educator you are, a great community leader and personal friend and fantastic board member. And to my dear friend, Elaine, and leadership of the Marketing Council. And I'm not sure if Anthony D'Amato is on. Thank you so much again for everything you do for our community. You are a blessing to me personally, as I said, and to the children in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Alberto. And again, as always, if there's anything that any of us can do, please do not hesitate to call us. So with that all being said, and the superintendent's time today, again, I'd like to thank the superintendent for his time in providing those words and an update for us. Thank you to our meeting sponsor, Hotwire Communications. Thank you, David, again, for participating and your continued support. And thank you to everyone that took the time out today, this morning, to come to our program and listen. And thank you, Michael Stern, for once again being our coordinator and our program director. For that being said, I see the last couple of things, the notes in the chat room, and they all thank you, thank you, thank you, excellent, inspiring. Continue on moving and let us know if there's anything you need, superintendent. So with that being said, at 11:46, and I know Elaine will be, as everybody knows, extremely proud that we are on time today. So with that being said, have a great day, everybody, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you, Superintendent.
Thank you.
Thank you.